Welcome to another episode of the Rankum Podcast. Thanks for joining us wherever it is, however it is you are listening to us. I'm Garrett Seawright. You can find the podcast at Rankum Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Seawright. And joining me as always is my good friend Don Garwood.
I am not a crook.
If you're watching, if you didn't pick that up, if you need to check out on YouTube, Don's jowl shake. Is Richard Nixon jowl shake. Today, we are going to rank our favorite movie presidents. We are filming this and recording this on election night, so the Civil War has not started yet. When you're listening to this, again...
Let this be the catalyst.
Right, yeah. It hasn't started yet. So, we are going to rank both fictional and real-life movie presidents.
Right.
So
now, I guess one thing I didn't ask you, are you counting Ronald Reagan's roles in other movies?
I wasn't. Should I be? Because if you're going to pull out like...
I've never seen a Ronald Reagan movie.
He was the Gipper in Win One for the Gipper.
Yeah, I've never watched
Newt Rockney All-American. Newt Rockney All-American?
No, never seen it.
Yeah, it came out in like 1948 or something like
right.
that. I wouldn't expect you to have seen it. So no, I'm not counting. This is not going to be a list of Ronald Reagan's best movie roles when we mean movie presidents, or Donald Trump in Home Alone 2.
Donald Trump in Home Alone 2.
I don't remember seeing Hillary trying to help out Kevin. I did love those memes. They were
right.
I don't know of any other
presidents that were in movies.
Yeah. None jump off the page to me.
Bill Clinton was in Definitely Maybe for about 5 seconds as he jogged past Ryan Reynolds. I watched that movie today. It's on Netflix.
It's Tuesday. Did you not go to work today, or
no? I took a couple vacation days.
No. Okay, so you watched Definitely Maybe today.
Yeah.
That's information that I now have. All right, thank you for that. So, we are going to rank our movie presidents. I promise you, my list gets better the farther in we get, but
yeah,
to start off, it's not great. But I will let you go first.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, anything for you.
As the first goer, I've got the movie, and it's a movie that I just recently watched within the last couple months. It's Man of the Year.
Oh, yep.
With Robin Williams, and he plays like a late night TV host who.
Oh, see, I got like names. I got names of my.
Yeah, Tom Dobbs.
Oh, okay.
His character's name is Tom Dobbs.
Right.
So I'm gonna spoil this movie.
Oh, well, it's been out for 20 years. Like if you ain't seen it, that's
came out in
you
2006.
Oh,
so
okay. So 15 years. Sorry.
So in this movie, he is a late night talk show host who, much like Conan O'Brien or Stephen Colbert or whatever, will do political jokes. And at one point, a cast member or an audience member was like, "You should run for president." And he was like, "Ha ha ha, okay." And then he like gets a bunch of support to run for president. And he's like, "I'll run for president." And so throughout the movie, he slowly builds up a following and wins the election.
Or does he?
But then it turns out that there was like malfunction in the voting machines, and so he ends up giving them back. He ends up not being the president, like exposing that there was an error in the voting machines.
He does the right thing.
Right. And so in that, he technically wasn't president, but when he was the president-elect for, call it 2 months before he revealed himself, he actually did a lot in that movie of like bringing Congress members together and went and sat in on a meeting and all that stuff. And honestly, probably just judging by the way the movie happened, probably would have won the election had they reheld it after he was the president-elect for 2 months. So I've got Robin Williams as Tom Dobbs at number 5.
My number 5 is President Benjamin Asher from the Has Fallen series, the Olympus Has Fallen.
Is that Morgan Freeman?
No, that is Aaron Eckhart.
Okay.
Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight.
Gotcha.
several other badass movies. But he's a nice, young, decent-looking, fit president that at one point in one of the movies is just getting his ass kicked by some North Koreans or something, and they want the nuclear launch codes. And by God, he's not giving them up. Like, they're threatening to kill his kids and stuff, and he's like, I can't do it for America. So he holds him in, and then, of course, Gerard Butler comes in, saves the day.
Right.
Not Spartacus, King Leonidas just comes in, kicking and a thrusting, and he saves the day again. Oh my gosh!
As Gerard Butler is
Butler,
wont to do,
as he is wont to do. There he is, kicking and a tearing, and USNA wins. And he plays a good president. I gotta tell you, he which really all you got to do is wear a decently tailored suit and have some gray in your hair, and you're president. That's good work. So that's my number 5.
Okay, so I guess I'll go next at number 4.
Yeah.
And my number 4 is going to contradict what you just said. Because my number 4 is President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. I'm guessing have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
I have not. I've seen it not be like I saw a list of like people on last night were tweeting, here are some movies you should watch before the election. And then they were like, here is a list of movies you should not watch before the election. And Idiocracy was one of them.
So in Idiocracy, the movie takes place like super far in the future, like maybe several hundred years at least in the future. And everybody has gotten very dumb. So Luke Wilson, I haven't seen it in a long time, so give me a little bit of slack on the details.
Even dumber than now.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So they don't know that plants drink water. Because the marketing company for essentially Gatorade in this movie was like, plants want electrolytes. It's what plants crave. And so farmers are using Gatorade to water their crops, and their crops aren't growing.
It's crazy.
So I think in this movie, Luke Wilson is like cryogenically frozen, somehow wakes up in the future. So he has all this basic information that he's trying to like teach all of these people. And so Terry Crews is the president in this movie, and he wears like a cut off American flag tux and like jean shorts and stuff like that, and has a mullet. So
he does not look presidential.
No gray in his hair. No
suits. No navy blue suits.
No. So just because of Terry Crews in that movie, the movie is very stupid, and Terry Crews' character is very stupid, but it's very funny. I wouldn't recommend you watch that movie, but it's very like kind of like Napoleon Dynamite. You feel dumber after watching it, but then you
think about it later, and you're like,
that's funny.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So that's your number 4. Sticking with I wouldn't recommend watching it, but I have President Abraham Lincoln from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, who was played by Benjamin Walker, which the movie sounds exactly what you would think if you were to close your eyes and I say the words Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. That's exactly what the movie is. The book is legitimately one of the best books I've ever read. It is outstanding because
I might get that now.
It is it basically plays off a guy finds Abraham Lincoln's diary, and he talks about how the Civil War was fought not because of slavery. The South wanted slaves because the South had all these vampires and they needed food.
Right.
And so the book is really historical, and it's really cool to read, and the premise is really interesting. And then the movie's just like, wouldn't it be funny if Abraham Lincoln hunted vampires? Like, no. Well, we're going to make that movie anyway. Okay, great, thank you. But he is a badass. I mean,
yeah,
he's chopping down trees with just like throwing his axe through the woods and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, that's legit. I'm pretty sure that happened.
That sounds
Frontier, Indiana.
We learned that.
Right. No. Well, and that's always my favorite driving into Indiana is the signs are like Lincoln's boyhood home. Like, you've been a fucking state for 200 years, and that's all you've accomplished is Abraham Lincoln lived here for 6 months.
Well, they were also the first state to get called by CNN in the election tonight.
They were.
So,
Kudos
but
to you.
I guess
Trendsetters.
Lincoln's boyhood home, I think, fits on signs a little, has a little bit more staying power.
We were first for Trump in 2020. Yeah, no, that's. But the book is great. If you get a chance, listen.
I just bought the book on Audible.
I was gonna say listen to the book because I know you might die if you read something. But
I've been reading another book that is on Audible that I'm like 700 chapters into.
Oh yeah,
that weird like. So the book that I'm currently reading,
it's the freemium the freemium version of a book.
Yeah, that was translated from Chinese, and so the original like 10 chapters I read was like very well translated, and then the PDF version that I found online
that you just ripped off
is like somebody just sent it through Google Translator like 3 times.
As if it's going to filter down to English,
right.
Real English.
And so it definitely. It makes you think, but not in a way that the book is like
intended to make you
right. Makes you think like this. I know this character is a female, but it keeps referring to this character as he. This character is a male. It keeps referring to him as she. I think that he and she must be like the same word. And so it's stuff like that.
Chinese,
right?
The wrong way.
I'm learning.
I'm learning Chinese backwards.
I'm learning the Chinese grammar without the words.
Yeah, that's what could go wrong there. What could go wrong?
So in the last week and a half, I'm like several thousand pages into that book, and I can't stop. It must be like some sort of like brainwashing thing because I just can't stop reading it.
You haven't like sent any nuclear information to any like okay, just checking. So those are our number 4s.
So you've got Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter at 4.
I do.
I have got Lincoln at 3, but in the movie Lincoln. Portrayed by Daniel Day-Lewis. I think it actually came out right around the same time as Vampire Hunter.
It was pretty I think Lincoln came out in like 2014,
12. They both came out in 2012.
I was going to say, so
and
Abraham Lincoln Vampire was 2012.
I think there's a really good chance that I watched both of them in the same night.
Probably.
Because I watched 2 movies when the movie Lincoln came out. And I know that I watched Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter in theaters. So I think there's a really good chance I watched both of them in the same night at the movie theater.
One's a little better than the other.
Yeah, but that's not any fault of Daniel Day-Lewis.
What the hell is wrong with you? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is a 5.9 on IMDb.
And Lincoln's a 7.3.
I would have guessed much higher, honestly.
I would not have. I assumed it would have been higher, but
I
wouldn't think it deserved to be higher. It was in...
tread lightly, friend. Tread lightly, friend.
I'm sure that you have it on your list somewhere. It's a 2.5 hour... It's a 2.5 hour movie. And Mary Todd is just a time sink in that movie of ruining the movie with like the 45 minutes of screen time she gets. It's like, if I can remember correctly, because I only watched it 8 years ago, because I don't have another 2.5 hours to dedicate to that movie.
I don't have another 2.5 hours to dedicate to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment.
But Mary Todd treats him like shit the entire movie because their kid died, and she can't like understand that, hey, Abraham Lincoln's doing some stuff that's probably a little bit more important than your dead kid. So until the end of the movie, they finally get along. She's not bedridden anymore, and then he goes to Ford Theater and gets his brains blown out.
Of all the ways you could describe what happened to...
That's the key points of what I remember.
Of all the ways you could describe what happened to our great president.
Oh, I have nothing against Lincoln, and I liked the movie, but it was way too long.
There are certainly things that could have been cut out.
And I have no problem with like a 2.5 hour movie if it's stuff that needs to be there for 2.5 hours.
If there's, 9 cuts and guy jumping over a fence to fight off a criminal or something. But
Right.
if you're just trying to teach me history, you can cut that out right now. I went to public school. I know it all.
You ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation?
I don't listen.
Listen to hip hop.
Oh, what a horrible joke! But God, that's funny. So yes, we will talk more about Lincoln in a little bit. I imagine we might talk more about this president. We could potentially talk more about this president in your list later. My number 3, I've got Richard Nixon from Frost Nixon. That Frank Langella played Richard Nixon in the movie about the interview between David Frost and Richard Nixon. The very famous, "I'm saying when the president does it, it's not illegal," which is basically like they filmed the whole movie around that. Like, I don't know if Frank Langella was just drunk one night and said, "I'm saying when the president does it, it's not illegal." And they were like, "Oh, would you be willing to give us months of your life to film?" But it is a really interesting movie that, I don't know, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, I don't know if there are stories or real life things that have happened that I wouldn't have been exposed to if it were not for movies. I never would have stumbled upon the Frost Nixon interview. And so I am glad that they made a movie about that, but his Richard Nixon is very good.
Is it phenomenal?
It's pretty good.
So
now, my top 2 are, there's one phenomenal acting experience, and then the other, the president's he's a bamf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna say is I haven't seen Frost Nixon.
I think you would hate Frost Nixon.
I've seen some of it, I think. Maybe just like a little bit of blurts, like clips of it somewhere on Reddit or YouTube or something.
Or you're scrolling through and you're going through the channels and it's on HBO.
Going through the hub, whatever it is.
How many parts is that on the hub? Like, you're like, part 40. Oh my gosh! Come on!
So let's knock out your number 2 quick.
Abraham Lincoln in the movie Lincoln, portrayed by Daniel Day-Lewis.
Interesting.
And it's almost because when you think of, and there's all, the old trivia, like, Abraham Lincoln was the tallest president at 6'4", and all of that stuff. So anytime anybody reads, like, the Gettysburg Address, it's always 7 years ago, our forefathers. Right. And it's like, and they went through and found, like, historical references to his voice, that it wasn't some deep, burly guy, but it was more of a kind of a high-pitched...
7 years ago.
Right. Not all that orally pleasing. Giggity.
It sounds like a 1960s radio announcer.
Right.
7 years ago, our forefathers brought upon this country
a new nation formed in liberty. But Daniel Day-Lewis, and you expect to see Abraham Lincoln and hear the 7 years ago, and that's not what he did at all. I think he does a really great performance. I love the story that he tells in the one scene where they talk about sending a British delegation to England, and what'd you think of our placement of having George Washington in the bathroom? Nothing will make an Englishman shit faster than the sight of George Washington.
Right.
Like, and the Daniel Day-Lewis, the actor, knows that that's funny.
Right.
And he imparts just a little,
a little bit of humor.
Right.
Into
Abraham Lincoln is pretty deadpan while he says that, but there's just a faint smirk there that that Daniel Day-Lewis knows that's funny, but you also know that Abraham Lincoln knows that's funny, but it's not like, but it's also very presidential in he can't just laugh out loud at a poop joke in 1865.
Right.
You can't just be like, poopy, like, because you still got to be somewhat presidential.
So I mostly talked about the negatives when I talked about Lincoln. It still sits at number 3, and not really for any fault of Daniel Day-Lewis's. Daniel Day-Lewis did a phenomenal job as Lincoln. Yeah. I mean, he lived as Lincoln for a year because he's Daniel Day-Lewis and he's a method actor. So he probably went out and stayed in a log cabin for the whole time he was filming it, or
kill a couple of vampires.
Yeah.
Really get the full Lincoln experience.
So I feel kind of bad because I did just shit on the movie, but I've got it number 3, and Daniel Day-Lewis did a phenomenal job. My number 2, I have got Michael Douglas in The American President as Andrew Shepard.
I have not seen.
So we talked about, as we were getting prepared to record, how it's like I usually Google, like, hey, what are the top movies that do this? And kind of scroll through them so that we don't forget stuff. Because if we do it without Googling it, we'll forget. Like,
you get to this point and go, oh, gosh, I forgot about Abraham Lincoln Vampire.
And there were several movies that I looked at and I was like, I wish I would have seen that movie at some point in my life, because there's several of them with great actors that I just haven't seen the movie. And I guess we'll talk about that maybe in the post show, the ones that we haven't seen, or some point, so that I don't bring one up that's on your list.
No, I think you will know the actor / president in my number 1 slot. So
it might be the same one as my number 1 slot.
Might be.
So Andrew Shepard, played by Michael Douglas. You haven't seen the movie.
Have not. You can spoil it.
I'm going to spoil it a little bit. So he is obviously the president of the United States, but he is a widower.
I guess we didn't specify president of the United States. We could have like the dictator from what's the Sacha Baron Cohen.
Borat.
Well, he's not.
Bruno.
Bruno also wasn't the president. It's the movie's called The Dictator, I think, right?
Oh, it's literally called The Dictator. Yeah.
Okay. But he would be president also.
So that is correct.
Thank you.
So in this movie, he's got like a 8-year-old daughter as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think his wife died during his first term, and so he is going up for re-election, and he becomes essentially the first bachelor president since James Buchanan. And so there is a lobbyist that starts lobbying for like some like greenhouse bill, I think. And Michael Douglas essentially falls in love with her, and then they start this relationship. And so she's getting hounded by the media, and all of this stuff about her is getting drug out in front of the country, and her like staying the night in the White House and stuff like that just becomes like huge national media. And then like it comes out that she's a lobbyist for this greenhouse bill, and that Michael Douglas, I might have said Michael Keaton at one point.
No, not yet.
Michael Douglas like starts supporting this bill that she's behind, and then transitions into other stuff. But it's a really good movie. It's actually my mom's favorite movie.
Really?
Which is why I have it at number 2, because I've probably seen it dozens of times.
100 times.
So I've got The American President and Andrew Shepard at number 2.
I don't know how far the rabbit hole you want to go down here, but James Buchanan's was gay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that confirmed?
In the same way that, like, you ever read an obituary and it would be like, Don is survived by his loving and caring friend Garrett, who they lived together for 16 years.
No, I don't read obituaries.
With their extensive scarf collection. Like, it doesn't come out and say you're gay, but he lived with a dude for 16 years and then went to Paris on some ambassador stuff and wrote letters about how he was solitary and all alone, and he'd been wooing several gentlemen to be his companion while he was gone and all that stuff. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Gay! Just because, like Mayor Pete had ran for president, and they were like, you're going to be America's first openly gay president. Like, is he?
Right.
Is he?
Interesting.
So,
I did not know that about James Buchanan.
Little fun fact about James Buchanan there. James K.
The
Polk
more you know.
has been disinterred 3 times.
Can you provide me the definition of disinterred?
Dug up after you've been dead.
Gotcha.
That's probably not the Webster's definition.
Dug
after you've been done buried twice already. Yeah, that's a fun little.
Why has he been disinterred?
He had a really crappy resting place originally, and then
So you say crappy resting place, but like dysentery sounds like dysentery.
see that was part of the issue. I think there was dysentery burial plots that he was near or something like that, and then they wanted to move him to his mansion outside of Nashville, which is called Polk Place, but they couldn't legally do it because the state of Tennessee can't accept gifts in perpetuity or something like that. So then they had to move him somewhere else. And
So he was considered a gift?
well, no, his family was going to give his home to the state of Tennessee as like a museum, and they keep it up. Well,
So when they just sell it for like $1?
you know, I don't know.
Let me give you this home. I can't accept that home. Give me $1.
But I think
okay. Now I can accept that home.
I don't know. I wasn't involved.
Just seems like there wasn't a lot of critical thinking involved in the state of Tennessee.
Well, the state of Tennessee might not wanted it. Like,
Well, that's true.
wow, we got James K. Polk's house. Wow. Anyway, number 1 for moi, which is French.
Should we do the honorable mentions first?
You probably are right
Okay.
in that idea. I will allow you to go first. That's kind of
Okay.
the guy I am.
So my honorable mention is Maze Gilliam, who is played by Chris Rock in the movie Head of State.
Haven't seen it. I should.
So just a quick synopsis of this movie. The Democratic presidential and vice presidential candidate die in a plane crash. And so
That's a picker-upper.
the what was it? So the head of the Democratic Party goes up to Maze Gilliam, who's an alderman, and is like, "Hey, you're gonna run for president for the Democratic Party," and so he runs for president of the Democratic Party and
wins.
And he wins. But I was telling you about this as we were watching the election earlier tonight. It's like at one point, like a bunch of people come on the news and they're like, the preliminary polls are showing that Alderman, what's his name? Alderman Gilliam is going to win the presidential election. And then they cut to a suburb and all of these white people sprinting out of their house, getting in their cars and driving to the polling place. And so
That's funny.
as opposed to Idiocracy, this is actually a pretty funny movie. It's very, very similar to like Man of the Year. I mean, it's rated poorly on IMDb. I mean, anything between like a 5.5 and a 7 is usually worth watching on IMDb.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And so this actually has a 5.5 on IMDb. I would recommend watching it. I don't know that I would go out and buy the movie for $19.99, but if you find it in the $5 bin at Walmart, pick it up. Pay $2 to rent it on Amazon. It's a solid movie. And that's what I have as my honorable mention.
So my honorable mention, I have President Thomas Wilson. He was the president in 2012. It's Danny Glover. He ends up
Dead.
He goes down with the ship like a good president.
And he openly forgives all of Mexico's debt to America so that all the Americans can cross the border into Mexico to survive the thing. I haven't watched 2012 since probably 2012.
I don't hate it. I usually am not a fan of those movies. I actually think it's all right.
It's very Day After Tomorrow.
It is. But the president goes down with the ship there, and I think that's a little admirable, even though it's completely and utterly fake. Which that brings us to
Our number one.
What do you think the chances are that we've got the same number 1?
I think I can only think of 2. I can think of 3 movies that have. I think you said that your president's badass.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I know what your movie is. I haven't seen it, so I don't think we have the same one.
I would be surprised if you've not seen this movie.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Is it Harrison Ford in Air Force One?
I have not seen that movie.
Okay, neither have I. That's one I was going to bring up later. So if that's the case, what was the other one? Why don't you tell me who it is?
President Thomas J. Whitmore of Independence Day.
Okay, yes, Thomas. Yeah, I have the same one. Bill Pullman.
Yeah. He's a complete badass. Like, the president of the United States is like, fuck it. Give me a fighter pilot. We'll kill all these. Give me a jet. We'll kill all these aliens.
No,
That's badass.
I completely agree. And I kind of expected that was going to be yours. But when you're talking about how badass he was, I was like, Harrison Ford. I've seen a little bit of Air Force One.
See, I've never seen a bit of it. And I have heard,
he kicks ass in that movie.
Yeah.
But he doesn't drive a fighter jet, fly one.
I was going to say.
Take it off and
President Thomas J. Whitmore. He flies it.
Lead this alcoholic into suiciding and taking out an alien spaceship.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great work, Thomas J. Whitmore.
And they humanized him very well, like with his daughter. His wife dies early in the movie, and so his daughter, and then his he has a major conflict with Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. I don't know why I can't think of his name.
Jeff
Goldblum. I feel real bad that I couldn't think of Jeff Goldblum.
The original guy Twitter killed. Like, it was like that was the.
Was he the first one?
Yeah, it was always like, Jeff Goldblum's dead. And it's like, well, we had to pick someone who's like, you couldn't verify for a while.
Right.
Like if you say Tom Cruise is dead, well, somebody's going to come out real quick. But Jeff Goldblum, that makes me feel real good, Twitter. Thank you. But yes, they get a little tit-tat there with the, the
you
existence
punched
of
the president of the United States? Well, he wasn't the president at that time, but yes.
Yes.
He's also the president in the second one, which I'm assuming he's the president incumbent. No. He's the former president at that point, because I think it's been 18 years or whatever. I haven't seen the second one.
I haven't either, but I've seen the first one, where the president of the United States
gets in an
F-16,
right,
and it's like, let's do it.
Eagle 1, Fox 2.
They should have played
call sign.
They should have played Danger Zone, even though it's very Top Gun. I don't care. The president
of the United States
of America. United States of America
blows up a spaceship, then lands his plane and goes, get on the line, tell them how to bring these sons of bitches down.
To save not just America, planet Earth.
On the 4th of July, which will no longer be recognized as an American holiday.
But instead, that which the world celebrates is our Independence Day. Oh, he said it during the movie. He said the name of the movie during the movie.
Roll credits.
Ah, it's so great. It doesn't get more badass than that.
No.
That's America right there. Brother.
I'm trying to think of... and when was it the Secretary of Defense? The dude that he punches in the face because they didn't tell him the aliens were real at Area 51. He's like, Mr. President, actually, you don't have clearance to know the information that's in here.
What?
Where did you get funding for this? You don't think they spent $25,000 on a toilet seat, $50,000 on a hammer, do you?
Yes, I do.
Good morning. In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind. That word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We need an echo effect. We will be united in our common interests.
We'll be united in our common interests.
Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. Annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. One of the best monologues in cinema. One of the best monologues in cinema.
That's good stuff. But he's got a suit on. He's got
He
slightly gray hair.
Throws his helmet on over his suit.
He's like, let's do
His
it.
little vest. Let's do it.
Let's do it, brother. America, right there. You think
any president?
you think Angela Merkel's going to get in a fighter jet and try to take down aliens? No. You think Boris Johnson's going to? Nope, but the American president would. So, plenty to talk about in the post show. I've got a beef with one of your top fives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to knowing what that is. Is the beef that Lincoln is 3 instead of 2?
Nope.
Is it because Man of the Year he wasn't actually president?
That's exactly what it is. That's 100% what it is.
Yeah, he was technically elected president.
No, he wasn't.
We'll
He sure
sort
was
this
not.
out.
All right. Don is on Twitter at Donnie_G.
Yeah.
Awkward space
Sure
for
am.
him to talk there. I am at Garrett Seabright. You can find the podcast at Rank Up Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Give us a 5-star review. Help us out however you can. Tell your friends about us. We would certainly appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.